This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 112 of the Dressage Radio Show, brought to you by Equestrian Collections and Kentucky Performance Products. Hello, I'm Chris Stafford. Welcome back to the Dressage Radio Show for another fun episode, which this week I have a really special guest this week who she doesn't know what she's letting herself in for, but she's actually going to become one of our new co-hosts here on the Dressage Radio Show. I'm delighted to welcome JJ Tate. JJ, lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, if anybody follows the eventing radio show, they will have heard you recently when we were joined by Silver Martin talking about the rise and rise of dressage in the sport of eventing, because you actually cross over both fields, don't you?
Yes. I have one especially successful student named Allison Springer, who's been working with me for probably almost about 8 years now, and it's been really exciting to see her and her top horse, Arthur, really come together and just really be talented and having those things really come together for them. It's been really exciting.
Well, we've got lots to talk about this week, JJ, and I thought this would be an opportunity to introduce you to the Dressage Radio Show audience, which, as you know, is all over the world, and, some people may not have been to the States and heard about you yet. So let's spend a little time doing that, talking about how you got to where you are, and then we'll take a short commercial break. And then after that, we do have an interesting topic, and it was a question from one of our listeners down under, which we'll come to shortly. But as I said, let's begin with your background, JJ, because you've been there, done it, haven't you?
I have. I'm 33, and I'm originally from Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, which is a very, very small town in the southeastern corner of Wisconsin. So I'm a Midwestern girl. And I started riding when I was 7, and I specialized in dressage when I turned 9. It was just always something that really spoke to me about the partnership that you feel when you ride a horse. And my horse is my best friend growing up. I just adored horses and have been obsessed since a very, very young age. And just dressage really just was so fascinating to me that you could really think things and have the horse something that big that he would just do what you would ask him to do. It just really was amazing to me, and I've just been obsessed ever since then.
So you were that typical horse mad girl, weren't you?
Oh my God. As many hours in the barn as I possibly could. And for whatever reason, I thought, cleaning stalls was fun too. It was just anything I could do. If the vet was there, if I could help clean stalls or get horses, run young horses in the currients. I mean, it was anything. Any horse I could ride, anything I could sit on. I always laugh, and I'm like, I used to ask my trainer, I'll ride anything that won't buck me off. And then, wait a minute, I think I did ride everything, including the ones that would buck me off.
Did you do Pony Club, JJ?
I did at a very, very small amount. My first horse was a saddlebred, so he was not that much into the jumping. So I did very, very low Pony Club and learned to jump then later on a different horse, but it was always a dressage that really just kept my interest, and I just became really obsessed with that. So I had a terrific trainer growing up named Gail Town, who was wonderful and read all the great classic books and made me ride without stirrups, and just was a terrific basic foundation, as well as was a second family to me. And she had started to bring in Charles DeCunsey, probably when I was about 11. So I started riding with Charles when I was, very, very young, and he's been a huge instrumental part of my life. And he's, an author of 5 terrific books and has been a judge and is an amazing clinician, and he trains all over the world. And I've been riding with him for over 20 years, and he's always sort of my subconscious in my head. Like, it's always, what would Charles do? How would he deal with this problem? It's just been a huge influence for me. So I've always considered him my mentor. And after high school, Charles DeComfy organized it for me to go to Hungary, to Budapest, Hungary, to train with Eula Dalos. And first, I just wanted to go to Europe. I wrote letters to everybody. I was thinking Germany. I just sort of want to go. And, Charles DeComfy comes back, and he was like, well, you can either go to this, Arthur Cotas at the Spanish Riding School, which would be this private farm because the Spanish Riding School doesn't really take women. So you'd be at this private farm, or Eula Dalos in Hungary. And I was like, well, I don't know, whatever you think would be the best. And so Charles definitely thought Eula would have been the most beneficial for me at that time because he, would be able to take me to more competitions and was at home more. He had a daughter my age. And so for about 3 years, I went first over with 2 young rider horses. And in 7 months, they both knew the whole Grand Prix. It was like the most amazing experience I have ever had. And there was no stress. And Eula is just an incredible horse trainer and an incredible teacher. And he's been a real big influence in my life as well. So I went then home for a few months and sold one horse and leased out the other. And I went back with a young horse and stayed there for another 2 years to really just get completely absorbed into the European experience.
So, let me ask you about your family here, JJ, because you said you got the bug pretty early on. Did you come from a horsey background, or do you have any siblings, any parental influence?
Not at all. It's completely just in my blood. My dad is a terrific coach, but he would coach, football and basketball. So he was sort of always like my sports psychologist and my sports psychologist growing up. And I played basketball as well and was into sports and things, but riding was always my number one thing. And my mom got involved with horses only because I was like crazy about it. So she became, the good old, horse show mom, and never driven the horse trailer before. And here we are going to a horse show. I'm in the front seat having a great time. Can't wait. I'm all excited. And she's like, oh, my God, I'm driving this car, this truck and trailer. What am I doing, And I have 2 older sisters, none of which had any interest in anything. But we were a family where, we all learned to play musical instruments. We all, got to take dance classes. And so this was sort of something that my older sister tried and quickly gave up, and my middle sister is totally allergic to horses, and I was like begging for, please let me ride horses. So the rest is history, so to say.
So the musical influence there, I'm interested, because a lot of riders I talk to, JJ, have an interest in music. It gives them a rhythm, and I'm sure you must be sensitive to this too, the rhythm that you get from music, and especially when you're, of course, creating a musical freestyle program as well. It helps to have that sense of rhythm in your head, which is it's just in your head, right? When you're riding.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I mean, there was a time in my riding that my first trainer also would just get a metronome and just put it around my neck. And she's like, you need to feel this, that you can create this and be able to have the horse go in this rhythm. And, that was also, I just thought it was a great opportunity growing up to have not only playing an instrument, but also dance as well as into the horses. I think that's definitely part of, something that I definitely focus on when I teach, that it's all got to be done inside the rhythm so that the horse can be kept in nice balance. And I think, my music background definitely helps for sure.
So, okay, so now I'm going to ask you what your musical taste is now. What do you listen to on your iPhone?
Well, I like anything from dance music. I love dancing. I do also like country music. So anything, I like, a little classical music, but I definitely love something with a steady beat and that you can kind of, get dancing to. I love dancing.
So you're creating a freestyle then is a whole load of fun for you.
Yes. I love freestyles. And I just think that's such a fun expression that you can kind of pick your own music and really try and bring to the audience, your relationship with your horse and the energy that you have together. And I love musical freestyles and, doing public exhibitions. I just think dressage is so beautiful. And if people can get a little bit more interested in it by having the music involved, I just think that's great.
So I could see you on the touchline there when Debbie was coming down the centre line to Respect at the World Cup finals, when she was really trying to get the crowd behind her. Yeah, I could see you
totally started to cry.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was amazing. I've been around the sport a long time, and my mom and I always travel to the big horse shows. We've been to the Olympics, we've been to Sydney, we've gone to the World Equestrian Games. My mom and I, it's always like our special trip together to re-inspire, and I'm like, yes, I want to ride on the team, and I want to be like those people, and those horses are incredible. And, that I was moved to tears with that. Debbie and Brentina, that was amazing. And it was just, I'm getting the goosebumps about it now. It was their relationship together, and then that music and that much energy, it was just such a moment I'll never forget.
I know, it was a lot of fun, and it was, as you say, combining all those loves, the music and the horses and getting the beat going. Couldn't be better. Okay, well, let's go back to your story then. You went over to Europe for a second time, you said.
Yep, to the same place. I went back to EULA, and at that time, I brought a young horse with me, and eventually, after a few months, purchased a Grand Prix horse there that could really, I sort of thought, here's this schoolmaster, and later we found out he was not the best schoolmaster because he needed a little training as well. But I think that's almost every case with the schoolmaster. But I had a young horse, and then we were able to purchase this Grand Prix horse that I thought, here's the best education, and it's during my apprenticeship, and here's a horse that I can learn from with a great teacher under my saddle and a great teacher on the ground. It was just going to be just a terrific opportunity. So that horse, I was able to compete, all over Europe in the small tour. And then I eventually, when I turned 21, and I was still in Europe, I was able to do my first Grand Prix over there. So that was really exciting to be so young and in Europe and have a wonderful horse that could kind of show me the ropes a little bit. So that was great.
So then what happened? I mean, did you ever want to come back to the States? What encouraged you to turn around and come back home?
I still wanted to do Young Riders. I had done Young Riders 96 and 97 on like my older horse who, wasn't very competitive, but I just thought it was such a terrific program. And I still, I have a, terrific young rider now named Tate who, it's just fun to still be in the program, even as I'm getting older now, to give back to the youth. I love it. So when I was, my last year of Young Riders, I was in Europe, and, the summer was coming, and I thought, I really want to come home and do one more Young Rider Championships. And so we came back, and our team won the team silver for Region 2, which was great. But I had some mistakes, so I ended up, I think, 9th individually. So that was a big disappointment. But that year, I ended up being the top young rider in Grand Prix. So that was sort of kind of exciting, even though I just wanted an individual medal so badly at the Young Rider Championships. But, being the top young rider at Grand Prix was a huge success, too. And looking back, that made me also very proud.
Well, I think another time that made you very, very proud was when you represented the States at the World Breeding Championships for young dressage horses in Verden. I mean, that is it, isn't it? If you're into, that's, yeah.
That was so, so special. And that was a horse I had since he was 3. So that was just, really special. That it was a horse that we found as a real youngster, and we just believed in him, and he was just such a terrific, his name is Donner Moose. His barn name is Petrie, and he just was a terrific, terrific horse. And to be able to share that amazing experience of, really truly representing your country. And I mean, I did show in Europe, and I was at the big shows, and but really being like selected to represent your country was just really moving for me and special. And I just thought, this is everything I wanted to be, and I am just so thrilled to be there and to be part of it. And the energy in Europe, and we're starting to get it more in the United States, just the appreciation of terrific horses and terrific riding. It's just fun to be a part of that environment. And it fed my fire even more. That I'm like, I just want to keep doing this. I love, the international ring. I love being challenged to ride at your top level. And I just, being there with riding alongside these people, I've just sat on the sidelines and been awestruck by. It was just really fun to, actually be in the warm-up arena with these people. So that was just such a huge thrill, and I'm really grateful and thankful for that horse for giving me that.
And you always hope some of that gold dust will rub off on you, don't you, when you're in that company?
Oh, yeah. You can't help but get better. I mean, the standard is just so high, and you just, everywhere you look is just great riding and great horses. And even if it's, your horse can't be exactly like someone else's horse, but to just look at someone that's really flowing and supple, and you can kind of feel that energy in your eye and then sort of take it to your own horse and be like, I want to feel more of that in my own riding, or wow, look at the posture of that, or look at those, like whenever I watch Stefan ride, who I've been lucky enough to start riding with on a regular basis. I mean, just every time, he invites us over to watch him school Ravel when he comes to Florida for the Masters, it's just inspiring to be like, I need to get my hands like that. And just, being around good riding just promotes good riding. So you can't get enough of that.
Well, along the way, we should mention that you've picked up the U.S. Dressage Federation's bronze, silver, and gold medals. You've competed 11 horses at FEI now. So, I mean, you've been out there, as I said earlier, been there, done that, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you do a lot of clinics, a lot of teaching. Where is your operation now, where you base yourself as a coach?
I live in Chesapeake City, Maryland, and I run my business, Team Tate Dressage. I run my business out of River Edge West, which is across the street from Scott and Suzanne Hassler, who run River Edge, Maine. And so a couple years ago, Scott had invited me up here to kind of, be closer to the training and be sort of part of their umbrella, up here of also, great riding. And it was just been such a terrific experience. Scott and Suzanne are just amazing people and, great riders and trainers. And it's just been such a fun thing to be able to be a part of. And, coming from after I was in Europe, I had gone back to Wisconsin and I'd opened up a business, a training business there with my mom and Greta and Van Pell. Greta was also a trainer. So we did that for 7 years, and it was wonderful. It was a terrific place and terrific clients, a lot of whom I still teach to this day. And from there, I sort of would go down to Florida, and I trained a lot with Odette Shimoni down in Florida. And I just got hungry again. I just want to, again, do this at the top sport. And I went to the Robert Dover's Search for the Next American Dressage Star. It was a reality television show, which I took part in. And I ended up being the runner-up, but that was really powerful for me because at the end, Robert Dover, who's been there, done that, been to the Olympics, 5 times, said to me, you're already on your way. You're doing what you need to do, and I believe in you. And that was enough right there to inspire me so much to stop talking about going to the Olympics, and I needed to start making actions to do it. So then that was the summer that I moved out east for the first time, and that was about 5 summers ago. So that's how I originally had gotten to the East Coast. And then for 2 years, I was at Sherry Glickman's farm down near Frederick, Maryland. And then from there, Scott had invited me up to River Edge West in Chesapeake City. So that's where we are today.
And what horses do you have in training right now, JJ?
Right now I have a few very special horses. I have one 8-year-old Oldenburg stallion named Rosal. He's probably one of the most talented horses I've ever sat on and ridden. He's just a fantastic mover and has really great technique. He's just been a little bit slow in his development, I think, because he just had so much movement. Sometimes it was a little hard for him to kind of get himself organized, but he's a real shining star, I think, for the future. And then I have another 8-year-old named Fabergé, who I've been riding for Elizabeth Guarisco-Wolf, one of my clients and sponsors from Middleburg, Virginia. We winter at her facility down in Wellington, Florida. And he's just a terrific, it's a Floristan horse, and he is just incredible. Right now, he's ranked, I think, 3rd for the Developing Horse Championships. And 2 years ago, as a 6-year-old, he was a reserve national champion. So he's just been a real special up-and-comer that we sort of, purchased for Elizabeth and sort of, kind of looked at each other like, she's really special. So she's allowed me to ride him and train him and just to see, where you can go. So that's been really exciting. And then, there's just a barn full. I think we've got about 15 or 16 horses at the moment, all of, various ages and different levels, and a couple of sale horses. But those are the few real special ones.
Terrific. Well, you keep plenty busy, don't you? So you're going to find some time to come on the show regularly here with me and help me co-host this show.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love it.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about what exactly a competitive dressage horse is here in just a moment. But before we do, I want to remind you about one of our loyal sponsors here, and that's KPP, Kentucky Performance Products. It's that time of year when your horse will be sweating more and needs some help in replenishing fluids. KPP offers a solution with Summer Games Electrolyte. It was originally created for horses competing at the Olympic Games and is a formulation that's combination of minerals similar to the levels typically lost in sweat. Summer Games is a concentrated electrolyte that contains minimal sugar and supports normal hydration. Plus, it's palatable and easy to feed. So help your horse beat the heat with Summer Games Electrolyte. And you can find out more about this and all of the KPP products by visiting kppusa.com, or you can call 1-800-772-1988. And you can learn much more about horse nutrition and interact with the KPP experts on their Facebook fan page. KPP is a participating retailer of the Horse World Gives Back campaign. Well, as I said, I'm with my new, soon-to-be co-host here on the Dressage Radio Show, JJ Tate, Jessica Jo Tate. So you just abbreviated it for convenience, did you, JJ?
Yes. Sometimes it's just JJ, whatever.
All right, wonderful.
Sometimes if you call me Jessica, I won't answer because it just sounds so strange.
I know.
It's always, from the beginning, been J or JJ, so it's just kind of stuck.
That's what happens, doesn't it? I can't imagine being called Christine. If anybody calls me Christine now, I think, oh, they must not know me,
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, we're going to kick off this week, as I said, introducing you to our audience, but also talking about a topic that was sent in to us by one of our regular listeners here on the show, Benjamin Featherstone. He's down in Sydney, and he often writes to us. Benjamin, hi. It's lovely to have you as a regular listener to the show, and you've always got some great ideas that we should be talking about here. And this idea, as I said, Benjamin sent in, and he says, what exactly is a competitive dressage horse? I.e., as you know, I believe in dressage for every horse, but also understand that the qualities of suppleness, natural gaits, balance, etc. are part of the judging. It isn't just an obedience class. A horse with an accurate, correct test isn't going to win over a horse who also has great gaits, etc. It's a good question, isn't it, JJ, because there's so many dimensions to a competitive dressage horse.
Yes, I think it's a great question. And, there's just so many different components that go into having a successful test. And we always have to remember, too, that it's not always the test score that comes back. It's many times how we feel about the test. There's been many a test I've ridden that I felt, wow, that was so much better. The horse was so much balanced, and I get the test score, and I'm like, oh, it's lower than my last one. And so I think it's also important to always, find your own successes and your own standard of improvement, and that it's a real competition really against yourself and riding a really great test. But it is very true, and I totally believe that dressage is for all horses of any breed, of any sport, to just get better balance and to be able to carry themselves much better. But there are the horses out there that, have really fantastic gaits that will win over a, nicely correct test just because the horse has bigger gaits. But I always tell my students that have, not the Olympic mover, that it's important for them to, there's so many aspects of technically riding through a good corner or the right angle for the shoulder in, and that you have to sometimes break the test down in certain places that you can make up for not having a 10 for an extended trot. And I think when we look at what makes the most successful kind of competitive dressage horse is that something that has, very correct, expressive gaits, that is well balanced and very consistent in the throughness and acceptance of the bit, and basically really swings through the test in a really easy way, that nothing looks stressed, everything looks like it comes easy and very natural to the horse. I think that's when it can have a beautiful flow and the horse and rider are sort of in the zone, so to say. I think that's really what takes the good performance up to an exceptional performance.
And I think we cannot overemphasize the importance of establishing those foundation elements of basic training, from the very earliest stages, yeah. JJ, isn't it? I mean, it's so important just to get those fundamentals so established, and the rest will come. But it's like building blocks, isn't it? If you don't build it solidly at the bottom, eventually it will crumble if you don't have it right.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I do find, in the beginning, I think it's important to maybe not have the fanciest horse. I think it's important to be able to have a horse that is really rideable for you and it really suits your abilities and your own goals, because there are so many elements that really have nothing to do with fancy movement, because everything comes back to basics. And being able to aid the horse correctly and have the horse listen correctly and react correctly, again, riding a good corner, the correct size circle. What is frustrating sometimes is that, we can have a very normal mover and it puts in a very accurate test. And, you have this big, huge, fire-breathing dragon that's going to the Olympics and it's amazing and it's, not that controllable. And so sometimes even the more consistent and classical and harmonious relationship with a test, with a normal moving horse, can actually place higher than the fantastic mover. Because with that fantastic mover, again, it comes down to rideability and the balance and the basic foundations of correct schooling, that even the horse that has maybe an 8 or 9 or 10 for gaits still has to be recyclable and listen to the half halt and be on the rider's seat and be tentative to what's happening so that he can show himself to a great level, and the scores these days are really going high, I think, because the quality of riding is improving. And it's something for me that if you have a normal moving horse and you go out and you get, a 68%, and that is at that horse's highest level. Like, that is such a thrill. It doesn't matter if the horse that, it's actually a disservice to the horse that has 8s for gaits and can get an 8 on everything, but is poorly ridden and wins the class with the 70 when it's really capable of a 76. That's almost, disheartening, because that horse, our goal is to always ride each horse up to their own ability, and that each horse can sort of accomplish their own Olympics, and not necessarily the actual real Olympics. That could be, I have a really downhill horse by nature, and through my pragmatic work, it really developed suspension in the trot, and now it has a real medium trot. Even though the other horse may, by nature, have an 8, it's a much more exciting thing to be able to make a horse much better through the dressage work.
And when we're looking at gaits and we're looking how correct those gaits are, and a horse might be a very flashy mover, it's important not just to look at the front end and how the horse is coming out of his shoulders. There's the back end too, isn't there?
Yes, and first and foremost, don't ever buy the trot. That's something we all get really excited about, like, ooh, the horse is running in the paddock and you should have seen it trot. Oh my gosh, it was snorting and the tail was up and it's all excited, and they all look like they're going to the Olympics when, something exciting happens. But the most important, for sure, is the walk and the canter. That you always want to make sure you have a very good rhythm, a very nice overtrack, very steady in the rhythm, and a beautiful open shoulder. But the activity of the hind leg and the ability to overtrack in the walk is really great. And the canter also has to be, you're just going to be so much farther ahead if you can get, a beautifully uphill balanced canter with a very, again, pure gait. It has to be really true in the 3 beat of the canter, and a nice moment of suspension, and feel that way the horse's pelvis moves in the canter is very much related to the collection down the road. So you want to also take a look at that in the canter as well. the trot, you have to sometimes, even with some of the best horses, have a little bit imagination about where that could go. It's amazing, how a horse trots as a 3-year-old, and then as it starts to develop and the collection really builds the strength of the haunches, it's amazing what that trot can really turn into in the future. And it's important also to not get too excited about what the legs do when they're off the ground. Like if you watch a horse's hind legs, it's not all the time that the hock, is so high up off the ground. You want to also take a look at what happens when the leg lands on the ground. Does that horse supplely bend through its joints? Not only the fetlock joint, but the hock and the stifle and the hip. That ability to lower the croup and sort of get seated in the hind legs is really something that can even overtake not the best shoulder. If you can really see an ability in the horse to sit behind, it's amazing what can happen to the shoulders from a good hind leg.
And we also hear about, obviously, how conformation will influence a good PF, or that obviously is an important aspect when you're taking the horse up to that level.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I look for is sort of body harmony. It really, for me, I've had a lot of horses that haven't been the perfect epitome of perfect conformation, and it's really, I like to look a lot more at the function. One of my first top FEI horses had these hind legs that were as straight as posts. You just would laugh. Like, he has hind legs like a fence post. And this horse could piaffe like you could not believe. And it was amazing because when in action, he had such a great ability to kind of crouch behind and stay active that he sort of made up a little bit for the conformation. Not that you don't want to start below, start negative, like, oh, it's downhill and out behind and all these things. You want to look for a nice uphill balance, but I do just like to also feel that there's a nice harmonious connection throughout the horse, and mostly when he's in motion. Is he balanced, and does he sort of take care of staying in balance in the motion? And I really like to look for that too, not just beautiful lines, because sometimes you can have the horse with the most perfect conformation, and it just is meant to be a Breyer horse and not really a competitive horse. So I like to look for function as well.
I'm sure Breyers would be delighted to hear that.
I have a collection of them.
Well, of course you do. You were the horse-mad teenager. Of course you have all the Breyer horses.
Exactly. And Barbie never rode well. She always had to ride so crooked.
All right, come clean. How many Breyer horses do you have?
Oh, God, probably at least 20.
Do you really?
I was crazy about it, yep. And one day I'll have them all lined up in my office because I just played with them, and that was all I did. I wasn't riding. That's what I was doing.
Were they all made to do dressage?
Yes. No, actually, a few of them did jump.
All right. Well, I think you've addressed that very well, JJ, and there are so many aspects to it, of course. And I think what would be fun is to have you come back on with Scott Hassler, of course, as you mentioned, a great friend of yours and someone who knows the young horse business, the breeding young horse business better than Scott. Wouldn't it be fun to have him on and talk about bloodlines and what to look for in that conformation at an early age, too?
Yes, for sure. Scott's been a coach of mine for the last 4 years and been really instrumental in my success at Fairden at the World Championships for young horses, and just bringing along some of my other horses. He coached me at the National Developing Horse and Young Horse Championships. He's just been terrific as an inspiration, as well as a terrific eye on the ground. And every year we have the Young Dressage Horse Trainer Symposium, where this is always such a hot topic of conformation versus function versus what do you look for. And, if you have a horse with a big heart and the willingness to do it, that can sometimes also make up for so much talent-wise. Yeah,
and let's not forget temperament as well. They've got to want to do the job and have the work ethic, haven't they?
Absolutely. And having a little bit of fun in the learning. I just have a really interesting young 5-year-old coming up Royal Prince gelding, and he's so attuned to the rider and wants to please, and it's just such a refreshing feeling to have such an excited student to what do you want me to do next? And that's just an awesome feeling, and whatever kind of package that comes in, that's just always such a great feeling for the rider to have a horse so willing and interested in the work and excited about, doing a good job. That's always so much fun.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to talking about more of that when you come back. And we're also going to, address the age-old classical versus modern dressage theory as well, because I know you're a great proponent. As you said, you've trained with Charles de Comfy and a lot of the other great European masters, and that importance of reinforcing the classical dressage. So we'll talk about that and any other ideas you come up with, JJ. You know that you've signed yourself up now.
That's great. I can't wait. I've already got my wheels turning about the classical versus competitive.
There you go. All right, wonderful. Well, I hope that's been helpful, Benjamin. And if any of you have any questions that you'd like us to address here on the Dressage Radio Show, just drop me a note, chris@horseradionetwork.com. And, of course, if you have any questions specifically for JJ as well, I'll make sure she gets those. And we'll address them here on the show. Well, that just about wraps it up. We've got one other item coming up just after this commercial interlude. And then JJ and I will talk about what we're going to do next here on the show before we leave you this week. And as I said, our commercial interlude here is important in that these sponsors make this show possible. And Equestrian Collections is one of those very valued sponsors here on the Horse Radio Network. And did you know that you can earn points for yourself and your riding organisation of your choice if you visit Equestrian Collections and their reward program? They value customers and support the equestrian community. For every dollar you spend at equestriancollections.com, you will earn 1 point. And each time you accumulate 500 points, you'll receive a $25 rewards gift certificate, redeemable, of course, at equestriancollections.com. And you can collect rewards for your horse to celebrate his special birthday with a $10 rewards certificate that's emailed to you during the month of his birthday and redeemable at Equestrian Collections. Plus, you can find all of your favourite dressage brands like Romph International, Kerritts, Fitz and Good Rider, all at equestriancollections.com, which has everything dressage for both horse and rider. So check them all out, equestriancollections.com. Equestrian Collections is a participating retailer of the Horse World Gives Back campaign. Well, we're coming now to the regular segment I started here a few weeks ago, and actually on all my shows, which I hope you're enjoying, and it's called Words of Wisdom. In the days of our ancestors, no animal, unless it be the hound or the dog, has inspired so much affection or sympathy throughout the ages as the horse. For many centuries it provided the sole mode of transport and locomotion, and even in these days of mechanization it still holds its own on turf, in field, and on the polo ground. It is fairly certain that no other animal has been written about so much as the horse, from the time of Xenophon, himself a practical horseman of deep wisdom, down to Geoffrey Brooke of our own day. Nor has any other animal provided artists of varying degrees of merit with so much material for their interpretation of the horse's beauty and the part it played, and still does, in the daily lives of the people. For of all things beautiful in this world, two stand out cameo-like: a woman in all the blush of her ripening beauty, and a horse in all the glory of condition and free-striding action. And further, the horse fits in so well with the typical English character that there is little reason to expound this belief further. One might, with advantage, quote author after author and trace the evolution of the horse from the time when it was no higher than a fox, through medieval days, in war and sport, to the present time. But this has been done so often, with voluminous extracts from Julius Caesar, the Venerable Bede and Camden, that it would only prove to be a repetition of well-known facts, many of which have been worn thin by various authors. More to the point is the endeavour of tracing the history of the modern saddle horse and the art of equitation to discover the types of horses our forefathers used. another point in dealing with this historical side of the horse strikes one when engaged in research that it is how badly our ancestors treated their horses and how curious their ideas of horsemanship and stable management were. This extract is taken from Riding and Horsemanship by William Fawcett, published by Adam and Charles Black in 1935. Well, I'm back with JJ, my guest this week, who actually has been, obviously, as you said, you were an avid reader of all that classical equitation. You probably enjoy these words of wisdom from the old masters. JJ, do you still hark back to the old books?
Oh, yes. I just love reading and getting inspired by, just all the old masters. And I actually just had A Way to Perfect Horsemanship from Udo Berger. I just had that out on my desk the other day. And it's just wonderful to know that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And there's been masters before us that have figured a lot of these problems out already. And it's just wonderful to be able to have those books and be able to look back and see, how to work through an issue or how they did it, and just be inspired in general about the right way to train horses.
Oh, they're certainly inspirational. And while you're here, JJ, I asked a couple of weeks ago, I asked on the show if anybody knew where it originated, who decided that we should measure a horse by hand. Do you know who did that? If you can answer the question here, write into me. And if JJ can answer, then I'll let you all know right now. But if she can't give us the answer to this, I'm going to ask you again. Write into me, chris@horseradionetwork.com, and let me know. Or post it on our Facebook fan page. And while JJ's scratching her head thinking, now, who was it?
I didn't know there was going to be a puzzle at the end of it.
There you go. I always put you on the spot as well, JJ.
There's a quiz.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a quiz.
Oh, yeah, we have a quiz. We often have a quiz here.
I do not know.
Okay, all right. Well, if you don't know, then I'm going to keep our listeners in suspense. So drop me an email, as I said, or post it on our Facebook fan page and let me know who it was. And it surprised me. As an avid reader of equitation and the classics, I thought somewhere along the line I would have learnt this, and I only picked it up recently. So it was a surprise to me. And it may be a surprise to our listeners. I won't keep them in suspense much longer, but once we get off the air, JJ, I'll let you know, okay? I'll put you out of your suspense.
Terrific.
All right, well, that about wraps it up this week. But before I go, I want to remind you that I'm still looking for young reporters. If you're out there and you're under 20 years of age and you'd like to come on the show and report on your competition anywhere in the world, we'd love to hear from you. Just write up a little report and give me a call. Send me an email, chris@horseradionetwork.com, and we'll talk you through it. We'd love to hear from you. Our website, of course, is dressageradio.com, where you can listen to us there, or you can go to iTunes and update the podcast every week. We also, of course, have our HorseWorldGivesBackCampaign.com website, where you can support that campaign, where we are raising money all year round to help those in need who have suffered from, of course, the very awful tragedies of the vagaries of the weather around the country, a lot of displaced horses and so on. Well, all money raised via HorseWorldGivesBack.com is being channeled to those people in need through the Red Cross and through the U.S. Equine Relief Fund that is operated by the Kentucky Horse Council. So don't forget to check those out. If you want to listen to the show on the go or any of the Horse Radio Network shows, you can go to Hallway Feeds app. We'll put a link on our website, as always, where you'll also find audible.com free trial if you listen to audio books. JJ, are you an Audible book person? Do you listen to books on the go?
I do. We every year drive down to Florida and back up to Florida. So we definitely would love that. Books on tape are terrific.
A lot of fun. All right, don't forget to check that out. It's a free trial offer for listeners of the HorseRadioNetwork.com, and also you can do some shopping at Amazon while you're on the website too. Don't forget, we're on Twitter at Horse Radio, and my Twitter name is Chris E. Stafford. We tweet away here. Are you a Twitter? I know you have your website, which we'll put a link to, of course, JJ, but do you tweet yet? Are you into that?
I started it, and then I got into Facebook, so it became a little bit, the Facebook sort of took over with my updates on Facebook. But now I have something new on my iPhone, which is the Hootsuite, which I can update both my Twitter account and my Facebook account as well.
So what do we look for then on Twitter? What's your Twitter name?
Jessica Jo Tate.
Jessica.
And on Facebook, it's also Jessica Jo Tate, and then I also have a Team Tate Dressage page.
Wonderful. Well, we'll put links to all of those here on our show notes, as always. And don't forget, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, we love to hear from you. So send those over to me, chris@horseradionetwork.com. Well, JJ, this has been fun. Thank you for joining us this week. When are you going to come back, and what are you going to talk about next? Are you going to bring Scott with you?
I would love to bring Scott with me. And yeah, I mean, it's getting pretty hot here in the afternoon, so the afternoons are pretty open around 3 p.m. So I can come back whenever I'm invited, and would love to talk about anything from young horses to how to teach, or classical versus competitive riding. I love a good discussion about anything horse related.
Right. Wonderful. Well, that's easy then, and we'll save you from the summer heat. Then we'll get you indoors to come back on the show here a few times this summer. We'd love to catch up with you again, and we will try and get Scott on and talk about some of those issues that you mentioned. All right. Well, thanks, JJ.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah. Well, great to have you, and enjoy the rest of July. We'll catch up with you in August. I will, of course, be back here same time, same place next week. So until then, thank you all for listening.